All right. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Uh, my name is Daniel Voss. I think you probably know that, but we have a special guest today, special guest presenter, Andy Gruswitz. He is a seminary student at Puritan Reformed Seminary. He's also done a lot of work in helping churches with things like search engine optimization and just outreach in general. And so I was thankful that he was willing to be our special guest presenter today. And I guess, Andy, before you dive in, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll hand it over to you for today's presentation.
Very good. Thank you, Daniel. As you said, my name is Andy Gruswitz. I'm in my third year at Puritan Seminary in Grand Rapids. We moved here a few years ago from northern New Jersey. And I started out in delving into search engine optimization, mainly through, I think one of the biggest factors was Google Maps, but then also building the first website for my wife and my business in music instruction. This was many years ago, some 20 years ago now, not quite 20 years, like 18 years ago. And what was very interesting about that time period was that my wife just told me she'd like to have a few more students. We had no vision for starting a music school with multiple locations and multiple teachers and such, but she just said maybe I should have a website. A lot of music schools around us didn't bother with that at the time. But because of that, and because Google was so keen on rewarding those who basically replicated the reality of their physical existence in some digital form that they could then reward with visibility on Google, I made a website and I made a Google Maps listing, and overnight we were getting lots of calls. Now, you will not get that kind of return on investment because what's happened over all these years is that people like Daniel and I and agencies that help businesses to increase their visibility are about the business of gaming the system, essentially, right? Like, we want to jump through the hoops Google wants us to jump through to help people show up on search results. And so over the years, what ends up happening is everybody has to jump through more hoops to get through this, get the same return on investment. Google Maps for churches, though, is, I think, well, I would say it's even something to do prior to having a website, although it's going to make your listing look a whole lot more professional if you've got a website to point to. And that's really where you're going to have the greatest opportunity on your own website to show people what your church is all about and help them to be inclined to come and visit. But before almost anybody gets to a website, unless your search engine optimization is really good on the website itself, they're likely going to find your Google Maps listing first. And especially if they're searching for you on Google Maps, which a lot of folks are doing on a Sunday when they're just trying to check out a new church or traveling and needing to visit a different church. We just don't think about it. Like, it's the first thing that we do. It's like the air we breathe. And then when we think about the fact that Google Maps is actually a really, I would say, one of the lowest hanging fruit for outreach out there, because the demographic you're working with is the people that are literally looking for you in the moment. That it's just a really powerful tool to leverage to the best of its ability to help people to find your church. And so that's what we're focusing on today. And I thought, rather than just listing every possible to-do that you could do to make it look good, that can get a bit overwhelming. And so I want to look at it mainly from the perspective of what category do you put your own church in terms of how well they're doing at using Google Maps. And so that hopefully will inspire you a little bit more to try and want to aspire to the next level. I've got a beginner, intermediate, and advanced as kind of the categories we're going to look through today. And I want you to think of Google Maps in two different ways. You can look at it negatively in terms of removing barriers to entry for people, where a poor Google Maps listing or a non-existent Google Maps listing can quickly get skipped or not seen at all by someone, where simple free steps that you can do can remove that obstacle for them to find you. And it's positively speaking, if we simply look at it as one of the many elements of church hospitality, it's a means for us to show people that this is something that is just a way we want to make sure they feel like they're welcome to come. And you'll see as we look at the various elements of the Google Maps listing profile, that these things are actually set up well by Google, I think, to kind of give that idea to people as to how much we're really trying to make sure they feel that they're welcome to come and informed about the things that they might be interested in at our church. Chris Bird is here. He's director at the Boardwalk Chapel. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with it, but one of the big things that was a big takeaway for me doing an internship there this past summer was just the analogy of the giant door of the chapel there on the boardwalk. It's a big garage door for this chapel, and it opens up, and it's open suddenly now to all the thousands of people, the foot traffic there on the beach. And that right there is a huge taking down of a barrier to entry. And it always struck me that I wish I could find more churches that had a missing wall, because it's a beautiful picture of the kind of welcoming we want to be doing for people. And Google Maps here, in this case, there's a lot of ways we can remove obstacles for people in that way. So I'll start then with that first category, the novice level business listing. And for that, I'm going to share my screen. Are you seeing the Google business profile screen right now?
Yeah, it says stand out
Yes.
with Google on a free business profile.
So this is just Google, it's business.google.com. This is giving you basic information on what these profiles are that you can build to help people see about your business and what features it offers. But you don't have to go through, they used to have a separate place. It used to be called Google My Business. They're trying to kind of flatten the whole experience, not just for the users of Google Maps, but also for the businesses and organizations that use it. So flatten it out so that you're just on Google Maps the whole time, everybody, even as you're managing your location. So you can hit get started on business.google.com if you've never even had a Google Maps listing. I imagine most people on this webinar are folks that at least have one. I could be wrong on that, but even that step is very straightforward. So first thing you would do is you'd go on Google Maps and you'd search for your church, and you're likely to find it even if you never created a listing. And to then claim that listing, it's just right there on here. It says claim this business. You see that? Now, this one, I can tell you right off the bat, even though it says their church website right on there, this church has never claimed, I can be almost certain, this church has never claimed their listing. One of the telltale signs of this is that the one picture they have is actually Google Street View. And they have a few ratings, and yes, they do have their website up there, but Google can actually farm that information off the internet. And so that's what they've got. That's the whole of their presence, is what you see here, along with a few reviews down below. This is not even what I would call a novice listing, because they haven't claimed it, and there's not even the basics of what they could be putting forward in information on their church website. Need to make that go away. To describe what the novice church listing would look like, they would have gone in and actually claimed their listing, but they would take that job as kind of a one and done job, where they claim it, they put on some of the information, but there's very few pictures being uploaded by them. There might be, and this is something to watch out for as well, either poor, like an imprecise spot for the pin on their map. I've seen this happen in one of the churches in our denomination where because of this, even though it's technically correct in terms of, sometimes if your church is enough off the road that it's closer, the building, to a street that's not the road you get on it by, you'll actually be taken in Google Maps directions to the wrong street. And so in some cases, you want that pin right on your building. That's best if it works. But if you set your Google Maps to take you to that church and it takes you to some street nearby, it's better off moving that pin right to the entry to your parking lot or something to make sure that the most important thing is that if people are going to your church, you want them to find you. So make sure your pin is in a precise location. You can do that without even claiming your listing, by the way. Because if you suggest an edit, you see this on the screen here. You can change things on the back, but of all the edits you can make on your profile, this is one that I found to be more straightforward just as a user than by logging into your account. So if I click on suggest an edit and I click on the address, I can edit map location right here, and I won't do that because this is somebody else's church. But when you hit edit map location, you can actually drag and drop that pin to the precise spot that you want. That's one thing that you're going to want to make sure of. A majority of churches won't have to mess with that. It'll just be in a good spot to begin with, but it's something worth checking out. And if you've been told by visitors, I had a hard time finding you with Google Maps, that's almost certainly what you need to do. They might have outdated service information. So again, if it's a set it and forget it kind of a mentality of how to manage this listing, church service times change. And if nobody's in charge of making sure that that gets updated on the site, that might remain there. Then few reviews. Now, reviews are just going to happen completely not at your whims in terms of what happens naturally. No, you can't stop people from reviewing. You can't remove reviews when they appear if it's a negative review, unless they did something, said something that's like defamatory or the wrong listing or something like that. You can appeal these things to Google, but most of these things are going to stay. So then, but you just have whatever reviews come. But if there's no concerted effort to get reviews for your church, which is an uncomfortable topic for some folks, but I'll talk more on that under the intermediate group of people who are on Google Maps. There's ways to do it that are less awkward, and it's really worth your time. And especially if you have a culture, you kind of build a culture in your church to understand why it's being done. It's a very powerful way to keep boosting your visibility on Google. Google loves to reward that particular thing. Another thing for a novice listing would be that they are unverified or partially verified in their status. There is a verification process that you have to go through when you create your listing. And you just want to go through on the back end of your listing and make sure that this entire process has been filled. Sometimes I don't think they'll let you post to make changes on it until you've at least verified your identity to some extent. I haven't had a situation where I've been in this, but I've read up on these partially verified situations. You want to just look on the back end, which we'll look at in a minute, and make sure that there's no alerts telling you that there's some other stuff you needed to be doing to be verified, because that will dock you in your visibility on Google. So you kind of get the idea from this novice Google Maps listing description that there's concrete things that can be done that just aren't being done because somebody was asked to do it, they did it once, and it might have looked good at the time, likely wasn't everything they could have done, but then it already kind of leads to, well, we know some of the things we can do to get out of there. The one first obvious one is we want to make sure we've claimed and verified our profile. We need to fill in all the basic information that we possibly can. Sometimes people get stuck on that with things like, if it's just some member of your church taking that project on, and it asks you to put in your church's description. That's a place where sometimes people will get frozen right off the bat. Is that really, am I really the person to write something like that? A concerted effort to be organized about this. Maybe that person isn't the best person to write that paragraph. Or maybe they just need to be encouraged that that's something they can try their hand out. They can send it to the elders, whatever needs to happen just to be as thorough in putting all this information up as they possibly can. Adding more pictures is a good way to get yourself out of the novice section. So it makes a huge difference. There was a Google study they did where they found that listings with photos get 42% more requests for driving directions and 35% more clicks to their websites than those without photos. And then making sure those photos are compelling. That's something we'll talk about more under intermediate listings. Having good photos is important as well. We'll talk more about that. Encouraging some reviews. This can, even if this is done as a one-off, this can get you into a much better spot where you just go and ask some folks in leadership, let's say, for instance, or people who are particularly tech savvy, if they can go in and put in a review. And then here's another thing, even in the early stages of trying to improve your listing, there is an opportunity for every review for you to respond to that review on behalf of your church. And when you put in that thing, even though you're logged into your own Google account, when you reply to that, if you're the one who has admin access to that listing, your reply will not be from you, it will be from your church. And so you'll want to respond in that voice, and you're going to want to respond even if that review was left a few years ago. Just everything that you can do to make sure, to give the impression to everybody that you're attentive, you're listening to what people are saying, you're grateful for the time people took out to write a review. You'll probably see a couple examples on the intermediate post of what that can look like. You're going to want it so that it's written in a way that is gracious, especially if it's something that's a negative review. To whatever degree you can respond to it in a gracious way, that's going to be a better way to go. And then, like I said earlier, make sure that pin on your map is positioned well. All right, so we'll move on then to intermediate church listings.
Yeah, and if I can just interject
Yes,
something.
please.
If as we go, if anybody has questions, feel free to type those into chat, and I will pay attention to the chat and
Very good.
And interject those.
Yeah. Any questions right now? Okay, let's take a look at an intermediate listing. Now, I'm going to pick on my own church here. In this case, is my chat, you would not see my chat or my other people there. All right, so we're looking at the listing here for the Heritage Reformed. I'm sorry, yes, this would be more of another novice one, barely even a novice one here too, because there's a lot of missing information. This is another church in our denomination. I claimed the listing, but I've never been to this church, and I wasn't able to secure any images or anything like that. So I just want to make sure they at least had the listing. So not a ton of difference between the last one you saw and this one, except I at least had one photo I was able to upload. I got their church website wasn't actually populated there, so I added that. And I encouraged them to get a few people to write some reviews. So that that happened in the early days of that listing's existence. And then they just got a new one that was a really sweet review. That's always encouraging when you see the reviews coming in. But this one's my church. And here, if you click on the image, you'll see we actually have quite a few images professionally taken. It looks like a drone photo here, stuff for missions trips we've been on. By the way, you'll notice also up here, you'll see the date it was uploaded. And I don't think many people are looking at that. I wouldn't base how often you have to post images on the fact that people might see how long ago you posted your images. But it's a good indicator for you internally, for your own selves. It's a good idea to keep those photos flowing so that the most recent photos aren't of people who, you know, of teenagers who now have grandkids. And that will also give an extra feel of liveliness and vitality in your church, not just to visitors, but to your own members as well. And you can pull these kind of pictures also from your own social media posts and such. You do need to be some kind of cognizant and careful when it comes to people's faces. Your church should have some sort of a policy on that, and it's something that your congregation's aware of. But I will say this, when it comes to church photos, church website photos, Google Maps listings photos, your social media posts, things are moving in the direction aesthetically of showing more faces, not less. I think the churches that have people's faces on the website itself give a much more church has a missing wall, using that analogy again, kind of a vibe. And it's a tricky road to traverse in terms of helping even the most private-minded folks in your church to at least be okay with the fact that maybe they're not in the photos, but that the photos are there, and some people's faces are up. It's something to navigate as a church, but I would encourage everybody to do what you can to not just show people that you're a building, but that you're a people.
Andy,
I see this, yeah.
Sandy has a question. Are the photos just uploaded or have they been part of post?
I don't think, yeah, pictures that you put up as a post aren't going to be automatically part of the images within your gallery of pictures. You would upload this. Anybody who visits your listing can also upload photos, and those will be of whatever quality they decide to post. But yeah, your posts, which we'll take a look at as well in intermediate, they're their own thing. I'm not going to show up there as a part of the gallery. Does that answer your question?
Are you going to show kind of how somebody can just upload their own photos to
Yeah.
the profile?
Yeah, so here under Heritage Reformed Congregation, this is one of the properties that I manage. And because I have admin access to this, I don't have to click the, claim this listing, because I already have. Doesn't even show because I own it. And so I click manage your business profile. So right now what you're looking at is the front end. This is how it looks to everybody. And when you click manage your business profile, it's going to show you not how it looks on Google Maps, but a lot of the same visual aesthetic of how it's going to look on a Google search, except they have various buttons that will give you access, like the one you were talking about, adding photos, or adding photos is over here too. There's various buttons, and then there's this whole panel that really is wanting to nudge you in the direction of having really good, what they call profile strength. And here it looks like I'm about 2/3 of the way there. So if I hit complete info there, it's kind of like one of those wizards where I don't know if they use that word anymore, but it's a panel where it just kind of walks you through being as efficient as possible at just doing what they want you to do to have your profile as complete as possible. It's a somewhat different interface because it's really just trying to walk you through, like, this is all kind of, the whole platform is new to you. but it's going to walk you through what are those steps that you most need to do. And in this case, what is it going to tell me first? This is a tricky one. I'm having a little difficulty with this listing because twice in the past month I've tried to put in, well, I'll do it again now so you can see. One of the things you want to have happen on your Google Maps listing is for them to have a good sense here, as well as in your description, of what times your Sunday church services are. So if I click unclick closed for Sunday, that is almost correct. So 9:15 to 10:45. Not at night. So that's our first service. I can press the plus button if you have two services, and I can add the second service as a separate thing. I need to get in touch with Google. This is an unusual situation, I think, because I've done this 2 times over now, and it just doesn't take, and it comes back to not only not adding both services, but it's coming as if we're closed on Sundays, which is not good. So that's unusual. Usually all you have to do is do this. Next, you want to do for a listing like this, you're going to want to add the office hours as well here, if you have them as a church, where there's somebody on staff in the church building itself that somebody can walk in and speak to. If not, just leave those closed, I would say, for those days. You can also choose to do office hours here. That simply means hours that one can call and have somebody pick up. Just know that there is that ambiguity here because Google hasn't built this out in a way that's really custom for churches just yet. There are certain things that give me the indication that that might happen in the future. But for now, that if you put in hours and you really only mean phone calls, you could have people show up at your locked door. It's maybe not the worst thing. So I leave that to your judgment. Daniel, do you have any personal feelings on this matter that you want to chime in with?
Yeah, no, I would say just, put your worship services in there at least, and if you have office hours, list those as well. I think that's about it.
Yeah. So I'll hit next, and then it's going to tell me about other things that maybe could improve the listing. So they want more photos again. I'm going to hit skip, and I'm going to hit get started. But I'm just going to get back to that main page there. Oh, no, they want me to spend money. So this is also another thing we can do that we'll talk about under advanced. But there's ways you can actually pay to boost your listings visibility as well, of course. So I'm going to go back to this back end look. All right. So we're looking now at what it means to be an intermediate level church. As I describe the intermediate church listing, I'll take a look with you at some of these various places in the back end where you can make these changes to boost your visibility and the quality of your listing. Hey, look, my profile strength has improved. I wonder if my church times will actually populate now. So decent pictures, but aging and generic is kind of the way I describe an intermediate Google Maps listing. So in this case, I think the Heritage congregation in Grand Rapids is a little better than intermediate. I think the photos are very good, but they are aging. They are on the older side, and they're not generic. So I'll give us points on that one too. They're actual photos that somebody with a really nice camera took. Most of them. Another mark of an intermediate listing is they have some reviews, but it's an inconsistent flow. Guilty as charged here as well. This isn't something that you manage from the back end too much, so I'll take a look at this more a little later on. Actually, no. Let me take a look at that now with you. So if I click on 46 Google reviews, this is a listing that is maybe not totally consistent, but at least what you can see here when you're on the back end, you can do this on the front end as well, is you've got these reviews. Some of them, they never wrote anything, but they put in the stars. But then, you know, Young C here says they love this church, 5 stars. And I went in and I just replied, thank you. Now, you can be more verbose, but at least putting in something to acknowledge it is a good thing. Most of mine, it looks like, are fairly short, but we have a 1-star review with no comments here. And I just wrote, I'm sorry you had a bad experience here, Spids. May I ask what reason rated our church with a 1-star? I'm not sure they can even reply there, but it's just a way of acknowledging that this is a, and that they could edit their review and put in something. That would be one way. They could also get in touch with us. You can mention in your reply that you encourage them to do that. That's just another example of replying. This was a neat one. Sam writes, a friendly congregation and a good church to hear about a strong Savior for a weak and needy sinner. We've been very blessed under the preaching here. And I wrote, thank you, Sam. That is what we most want to be. You get the idea. Going in and making sure that there's a good flow of reviews is good. And in this case, we have not yet had a concerted campaign in our church to ensure that that happens. But I will on occasion. I'll just nudge somebody who I know to be technologically comfortable with something like that. And but an intermediate listing is going to have some effort to receive reviews, but maybe not a consistent plan. All core profile sections will be filled out. Now this here, you can read reviews here, you can update your photos here, you can view stats on your performance, you can go and spend money with Google AdWords to up your visibility. If you have products that you sell, I don't know what that would be for a church. Maybe if you had a bookstore, you could go here, but most likely not going to be used. Q&A we'll get into. That is a really powerful one right there. Or it's certainly worth your time. And then updates. Somebody was talking about posts. They're calling them updates now. Change the verbiage a little bit. But there's 3 different ways to post an update to people, like a blog or yeah. That's another thing we'll look at. And then ask for a review. This is a neat one, by the way, guys. One other thing when it comes to trying to get people to hit review, when you click ask for a review on the back end of your listing, there's a couple helpful things they offer here. First, this review link, I want you to see what it looks like when somebody actually visits that link. But you can also download this QR code and that can go right in your bulletin. I have some cautions on your strategy for how you get reviews when it comes to broadcasting it out to a whole church, but it's there, you can use it. And then now, just to show you what that link did, I open a new tab here and I paste that link that it offered. This is kind of pretty neat. You hit enter, and where are you taken? Not just to the maps listing, it takes them straight to this pop-up window where they can start the review right away. So that's a pretty nice tool. But I mentioned that the profiles are very, all the core profile sections are filled out. This is where you would do most of that right here, is edit profile.
Andy, Chris has a question about
Yeah.
what you mean by the flow of reviews.
By flow of reviews, I mean, and we'll get into this more under expert listings. Is there a strategy and a workflow in place amongst those who manage church communications or outreach for your church as to how you're going to not only encourage but ensure that everything is being done to the best of your ability to keep a regular flow of new reviews coming into your church on Google Maps? So that's what we're aiming for. But I'm categorizing this intermediate listing as being one that has put in some effort, but hasn't yet really gotten to that level of strategy and implementation. So here is the about, the edit profile section. You've got the business name. By the way, it's really important that match the way you phrase your name everywhere else. Your category, this is an important one because you're going to want, if you edit here, you're going to want the primary category to be the most fitting for your church, not just Christian church, but if you're Reformed church, put in Reformed church. If you're Baptist church, put in Baptist church. Then you can actually add all sorts of other ones. This one, actually, there's an opportunity here for this church to do what better. So I can add another one. I can add more. I won't do that all right now, but you can add multiple other categories. But make sure the primary one is the most exactly you of the pre-populated options. Next, you have description. This is the one I was talking about earlier, where if some people feel inhibited to write this out. This one here is the mission statement of our church. I think that's a little weak. I think this is an opportunity to show some hospitality right here. So not simply stating who you think you are in terms of your vision as a church, but also saying something. Don't say welcome to our Google Maps listing. But I have a little pet peeve about that. Some churches have got welcome to our website at the top of their website. But in any case, sorry if your church does. Yeah, something there to give some idea to folks that you'd like for them to visit. That's a good gesture. To put your opening date, phone number, chat. What do we have here? So yeah, you can add for text messaging or WhatsApp here. Your website for sure you're going to want to have there. You can add multiple social profiles here. That's relatively new. And then you can't, this is what I was talking about earlier. I don't know. Yeah, I was checking this out earlier this week. You can't actually edit your map pin on the back end for whatever reason. You can really, as far as I understand, only do that on the front. Service area, this has more to do with like plumbers and stuff, people that go out to do service in those areas. As far as I understand, that's not something that's terribly relevant. We went over hours, special hours. This is another one that's good to spend some time on to make sure it's up to date. If you are going to have any special services, if you use any kind of liturgical calendar, or have any special prayer meetings or anything like that that you're going to be meeting for, you can add that here, and that just adds a little extra security to people who are maybe not certain you are having that service. As they see your listing, they'll be like, oh, okay, they clearly are open for the church service there. Then it gets a little bit more obscure toward the end, but little details that people might like to know, like, is it handicapped accessed, accessible? Some of these seem very, very catered to restaurants. I don't know why that's still the suggestions here. More from business. This is just another opportunity to add more. Oh, okay. No, this is other pre-populated things. You can see it for yourself here. A lot of these are very pro putting a spotlight on minorities. And then, yeah, this is the accessibility part that I was talking about, wheelchair accessible. If you edit that, there's different things you can check there as well. Amenities. Yeah, you get the idea here. Crowd, same here, same here. Starting to get the sense of what business is running this. And then parking. Again, it's pre-populated things. You can just check yes or no. And then recycling and service options. On-site service options, services available. I'm going to say no, because it would be on-site. Is that like coming to people's homes? They've changed the wording on this since the last time I looked at it.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I've ever seen that before.
Yeah. The customers know about your business by showing them attributes on your business for these made. I think that's going to be like a plumber coming to people's houses. I'm going to hit no on that. So that's it. You go through there, and that's the information for your business. You want that to be as thorough as you possibly can. And then, so just recapping for this section, we're starting to run out of time here, so I want to run through this rather quickly. The intermediate, they've got decent pictures, but they're aging or generic. They've got some reviews, but it's an inconsistent flow. All the profile sections are filled out. They've got multiple admins with access and notifications. Now, where is this? This isn't part of these buttons here. It's actually kind of hidden away in this 3 vertical buttons right here. You see that? So this is going to be under your business profiles, I think. No, sorry, those are other businesses I manage. Your business profile settings and notifications I'll
Yeah,
go
I
through
think
these.
that's the right thing.
Yeah. So under business profile settings, it's people and access. Once you click on that, you can add who you want to be able to have administrative access to your listing. This is really important that you know who has control over it, because it could be somebody who left the church already some time ago. Regardless of the circumstances of that, it's best they not continue to have that access. And you want to make sure that everybody who needs access, and you want to have redundancies as well. If one person has access, it's better for there to be more than one, so that if that person leaves, you don't have to then call somebody who's left to help you to regain access to your church's profile. Those kind of situations are easy to avoid just by adding multiple people. It also gives people like in leadership an opportunity to just keep an eye on how things are going and have the authority and access to simply make changes if they need to on the fly. And then the last mark of intermediate, we kind of got this idea across already. It's just this lack of clear strategy and schedule. There's a lot that's been improved already here over the Novice listing, but there's much more we can do to push forward and really have a vision and a system in place to do well. So if we want your way out of this category, I would just say find ways to establish a routine for refreshing content. I haven't mentioned the updates yet. We'll talk about that during advanced. But that's a really big opportunity for you to have refreshing content, make your church look very visually pleasing and alive. Implement some kind of a review system whereby you are consistently asking people for reviews. Make sure that all of the information in the business profile is continually, so there's a system in place to make sure that you're coming back and ensuring that whatever information you put in under the edit profile and other places on the website, on the listing, continue to be correct. And you might even consider some of the older pictures, just deleting them and adding new ones when you go to add new ones. And then take also an opportunity, and I'll save this for the advanced one as well, to take advantage of the questions and answers section. So put a pause on that for a second. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And then just go in every once in a while and audit your manager roles. Make sure that only the people you want to have, and as many people as you want to have access to this account, have that access. And then make use of these Google posts and special features, the Q&A, which I'll talk about now as we move on to the expert church listings. So we've seen so far this unclaimed listing. We've seen this church listing that's claimed but barely used. I would say that's barely a novice one. We've seen this, I'll give it an intermediate rating for my own church. But we're going to take a look here at a couple of churches that I would say, at least at some point, they were very exemplary. Definition Church is in North Carolina. Here already you're seeing right off the bat, this picture was pretty nice. It's got some people in it. But you're starting to see even more now, the emphasis in the images are very people-oriented. And there's just a ton of them. Building photos too, that's important. That's also important in terms of helping people find you. You want there to be photos there to make it clear that they're at the right building when they get there, especially if you're in a church plant where you're not even using your own building, those kind of the situations. Good pictures, professional pictures. But now we're going into different main changes from the intermediate phase, where one, there's clear branding and consistency going on. And when it comes to this listing, there's a clear vision for this being a vital piece and a very planned out and implemented facet to outreach for the church. So yeah, clear branding and consistency, so that logos, you don't have an outdated logo here where it's a new one on your website. The kind of language you use to describe yourself is consistent. Color schemes, all these kind of things become a bit more consistent. And then regular updates in management. Here's where I will go into questions and answers as well as posts, because there's a lot more we can do than what I've talked to you about in terms of adding more content. So I'm going to go to here on Definition Church. We have, well, I'm on the public side, right? I'm not on the back end. I don't manage this church. But if I go and I scroll through here, I see all this information. I can suggest an edit, just like with any business listing. It's going to give me some of this information, photos. At this place, there's like another listing within this place for probably like a ministry they have there in their church that's a part of that church. And then we have questions and answers. So you'll notice there's a question right off the bat right here asking about if they offer Bible studies in Spanish, and they say, yes, we do. And if I click more questions, they have a dozen or two questions that have been asked. And they tell you who asked it, and they give some, all of the answers for the most part. Some of them are being answered by the church, some of them are being answered by other people. And that's the thing about questions. Anybody can ask them and anybody can answer them. And so you're going to want to make sure that you certainly answer the questions, especially if somebody else has chimed in with wrong information or out of date information. But you're going to want to go in here also and ask some questions. There's an opportunity here for you to actually broaden what this profile can even do in terms of providing information to people. And I've provided for churches that I've worked with kind of a list of potential questions. But you just think of like a FAQ page on your own church website. Anything you might put there would certainly be helpful to put here as well. Questions about how should I dress for church when I come to your church? Or are there any kind of assistance programs for single mothers? It can go anywhere from the most obvious to it's it can be helpful to get, especially where you have ministries, right? I can bet you, I can't tell for sure, but do you have a Bible study in Spanish? And the answer was yes. There's a good chance that this church came up with the question too. I don't know that for certain, but those kind of things are, if you have a ministry, ask it in a question form and then just say yes, and then describe it and give helpful information. Any questions on the questions and answers? So that's the one, and you can access that on the front end, right where I showed you. But if I'm on the back end, and I go to Q&A, I don't know if you saw, I might have gone too fast. Let me show you again, right here. Q&A. And then there's all these questions, and you can just answer it here as well. Now, let's, if we don't have any questions
I do have a quick
Yes.
question on that. It looks like when there's a question posted, it's labeled with who asked it. So that other church, the Definition Church, looked like there were all kinds of different people asking questions, and then the church was responding.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But it looks like maybe the church can, you can post your own Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
So looks like there's different ways you could go.
Yep. Yeah, and if I asked a question, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it here. Ask a question. Yeah, I believe because I'm doing it from the back end especially. You might do this in the front end too, because I'm logged in and it's my account. I'm almost certain here it's showing me, yeah, posting publicly across Google. This is going to be posted by the church as a question. And I don't think anybody's going to be put off by that. I wouldn't feel that there's any need to try and put that out, post it with any kind of a feigning the idea that this was just the public asking. People just want the answers to their questions. So I wouldn't worry too much about who it's posting as. And you might actually prefer the anonymity. So there's that.
Andy, I have a question about that too. So if you post from the front end, will it go from your Google profile? Maybe it'll show that you posted the question instead of the church?
Yeah, that one I'm not sure about. Now, I'm gonna go to ask the community. Yeah, it's still doing it as the church because I'm logged in.
Okay.
I'm quite sure of that.
So maybe if we're logged out, it would show from our own personal profile then.
Well, then you'd be logged out though. So you wouldn't be under
We'd have to
anybody's
be-
profile.
Yeah, we'd have
I
to
don't think
be
you can ask the questions unless you're logged in though.
Unless
So
you're
if you're logged
logged
in as under a different account, maybe.
a different account, then we could do it that
Yeah.
way. Show up as a, okay.
All right. So that's a Q&A, and then posts, as we used to call them. Gonna go out of here, and then they are trying to get me to do these various things to improve my visibility. Add update is going to be one of them here, but it's also always going to be right up here under add update. So there's updates, there's offers, and there's events. Update is like a tweet, basically. Using antiquated language, I think still. Because it's just a picture and a very short, well, actually it can be up to 1,500 words. So you can update and upload an image here and then post whatever you'd like to put up here as a post. But to clarify what you'd put in as a post versus an offer and event, let's just take a look at what the other ones let you post. So offer is going to be an image, offer title, start date, end date. This is more or less like a sale on something. You think of it in terms of products, but it's not irrelevant for a church, even if you don't have any kind of a store inside your church bookstore or whatever. Because you can leverage this to things like, where have I done this before? I've seen churches offer like a free book as a kind of like a way to entice you to join their email list. I think actually this is the Voss's. I think I've seen you guys leverage this.
Yeah, we've done that a few times.
Yeah. So you can offer details here. You've got coupon codes, link to redeem the offer. So this would be potentially under that kind of a scheme. You would put in the link to the page where you put in your email address to join the mailing list and get this free ebook, that kind of a thing. That can be a powerful thing. But let's go back. Add event. This is more or less self-explanatory. You would want to post here a picture representing the event itself, maybe a church picnic or a VBS, those kind of things. Put the title, the start date, end date, time, details, and you can add these various buttons: book, order online, buy, learn more, sign up, and call now, whatever's most appropriate. Now, we're talking advanced listings at this point. And for this, I would really want to encourage you, if you are using social media posting platforms like Hootsuite and Social Pilot to schedule out your social media posts so that you can have a whole list of posts that you're ready to post in the future. Maybe not, well, yeah, any kind of queue where all your social media posts are going up on a schedule that you can populate in advance and have it scheduled out to posts at specific times. Those are really powerful tools to really get a good strategy down for how you're going to be regular about posting on social media. But a lot of these platforms like Hootsuite and Social Pilot and others have Google Maps as one of those things you can connect to and plan out, schedule out posts for. And so because this advanced profile listing is kind of marked by having a plan for being regular on these things, that is definitely a good way to have those things in place, those plans in place, and a platform to really undergird that effort. Don't have to, though. It just takes a little bit more elbow grease to go in and on the same profile and make a regular thing of scheduling out and posting these things. Another thing for these advanced listings, they've got a very consistent review stream coming in. They've got a really good plan for how to keep tabs on the Q&A section. They're using those Google posts, and they're maybe using those different platforms to integrate with their social media strategy. And then there's also an opportunity to start spending money on this listing. So you saw already, they want to make it easy for anybody to hit the advertise button. But I will tell you, this opens up a whole new can of worms, a whole huge learning curve. I don't want to scare you away from it. I think it's a worthy investment. But it's a lot to learn how to do Google Ads well. They do make local listings, like a Google Maps post for a church. They have like an easier version that you can use to make it a little bit easier to use, but there's so much strategy that can go behind how to get the most for your money on these things. And so I'm just here to endorse that it's worth the money, but you may want to outsource it, at least initially. And some of the places that you can outsource to, I know 5 More Talents is one of those people that are able to help you with that. They might be able to just do taking care of it for you. Some places might even be able to help kind of coach you along if they have consultation services to help you to get to the place where you can start to take over pieces of it at least, or at least they can help you to help them to know what they can be posting or how to market you in a way that fits your brand. And then finally, this integration of the whole broader communication plan that you have for your church. Integrating Google Maps into that whole process is a part of what makes one, kind of belong in this advanced category. And so that would take, I don't know what your particular church has in terms of staff, and particularly people on staff with a focus on outreach or communications, but it's a tricky one for me because I always want everybody to be in the advanced stage as soon as they can. But sometimes it's a matter of human resources, financial resources to make these things happen. I would simply say try and see how far you can take your church. But there isn't a part of the work of being in the advanced category that wouldn't benefit the tiniest church plant. It's just a matter of, can you manage the time to do it? And I would say, because it's such low-hanging fruit in terms of outreach, it's worth finding a way as best as you possibly can, reaching out to other churches in your denomination, whatever it takes to get the help you need to prioritize Google Maps as an outreach tool. Let's see if I have any further thoughts, but we're almost out of time here. Any questions while I'm looking over my notes here?
Have you ever been regarding the reviews, have you ever been a part of a church that figured out a way to just make the asking the congregation to review the church, or suggesting any anecdotes on that?
Yeah, an emphatic no.
Okay.
And this is one of those things where I'm passionate about it, but I'm a seminary student, and so being any kind of a leader on this to the scale I would like to be in my own current church here in Grand Rapids has been tricky. But it's also something where there's a ton of cultural hangups and disconnect with how can this be a legitimate thing for church leadership to be really pressing. That's putting it strongly, but I think there is an uphill battle to be fought here, and it's going to take a lot of tact and wisdom if you really want to up your reviews to the extent that you have a regular system in place, not simply to create the system, but to create the culture. And that's the key, I think, especially as you get going, to not be blindsided by that reality. It's easy to feel that resistance and then just drop the whole thing. I encourage you to find ways to overcome that discouragement and continue to find ways to press for it until you do have a church culture of that sort. But it might take first really working on your church leadership to help them to understand why that's such a big deal. Do any of you have any particular hangups yourself as to why you would feel uncomfortable asking people to review your church? So I can maybe address those things to help you to overcome those things, or to address your particular situation.
Yeah, I want to be sensitive to the time as well, because
Yeah.
technically it's 101, but if anybody does have something real quick, then could try to address that.
And I have a checklist I can send out as well, or I don't know, do you want to post that on the school app as well?
Yeah,
Or do-
great. Yeah.
I sent that to you via email, Danielle, but I can put it in the chat here, or you can put it on the chat, the link to that document, or you can download it as a PDF. That might be better than just linking to the Google Doc. I think I have it set to editable. I can change that.
Okay, yeah, I see that in my email. So I will make sure that gets posted in school. And I think that's kind of a good way to close this out. I think everybody, I'll share my screen, and definitely, Andy, thank you so much for coming today. We
Yeah,
we want to have you back in the future if you're willing at some point.
that'd be great.
But yeah, this is the church outreach group. If you're not a member of this yet, I'll paste a link in. You just go to school.com/church-outreach.group. You can see the discussions that are going on. There's also a classroom that has a growing number of courses and recordings of previous webinars that we've done. So again, thank you so much, Andy, for presenting today. This has been great teaching, lots of good ideas, and really appreciate you taking the time for this today.
Thanks very much. Good to see you all.
All right, thanks everybody.
Take care.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye.